Welcome to Paranormal Files. I'm your host, Zoe Parker. And in today's episode, we dive into urban legends that were never supposed to be real, until the evidence said otherwise. Tales whispered in playgrounds and darkened hallways, dismissed as campfire fiction, have resurfaced in ways no one can explain. From faceless entities to haunted roads, some stories have broken free from myth and revealed something much darker lurking beneath. What happens when a legend steps into reality? It begins with stories passed from one generation to the next. Tales told to frighten children, warn teenagers, or entertain late-night listeners. Urban legends are often born from fragments of truth, twisted and reshaped over time until they no longer resemble anything real. But some stories never fade. They return. And when they do, they bring with them traces of something disturbingly authentic. One of the most enduring legends in American folklore is the tale of the Bunny Man. According to locals in Fairfax County, Virginia, the story began in the early 1900s. A man who had escaped from an insane asylum near Clifton was said to have disappeared into the surrounding forest. Soon after, residents began finding mutilated rabbits hanging from the trees, their bodies skinned and nailed to branches. Then came the reports of a man in a white rabbit costume, wielding an axe, threatening trespassers who dared venture near a railway overpass, now known as Bunnyman Bridge. While the story sounds like a work of grotesque fiction, Fairfax County police records from the 1970s document multiple reports of a man dressed in a bunny suit terrorizing locals. In October of 1970, a couple parked near the bridge was approached by a man in a white costume who screamed at them for trespassing and hurled a hatchet through their car window. Less than 2 weeks later, a security guard reported seeing the same figure chopping at a porch post with a small axe. Though no one was ever caught, the cases remain open. And to this day, the area is a hotspot for strange sightings and late-night dares. Farther south, in the forests of Alabama, another legend haunted generations. Helltown. This place, more rumor than map point, was whispered to be a cursed ghost town, abandoned due to a government cover-up. The tales spoke of mutated creatures, satanic rituals, and entire buildings swallowed by the earth. While official records claimed the town was simply evacuated for a national park project, hikers began to report bizarre occurrences in the restricted areas. Glimpses of deformed figures, screams in the trees, and vehicles that followed them without headlights before vanishing into the fog. In both cases, the stories were never supposed to be real. They were urban legends, designed to entertain or scare. But the real reports, police documents, news clippings, and first-hand accounts tell a different story. These locations are not just imaginative warnings. They are physical places where the line between myth and reality blurs, where local authorities respond with silence, and where those who dare to investigate often come back changed or do not return at all. The first sightings are always the easiest to dismiss. A flash of movement in the dark, a strange noise where none should be, a story told by someone already considered eccentric. But then come the patterns, the names, the dates, the photographs, and the realization that multiple people, across years or even decades, are reporting the same inexplicable thing. One of the most unnerving examples comes from Deer Park, Texas. In the early 2000s, a legend began circulating online about the Whistler. The story described a man who would appear outside homes at night, silently watching, only to vanish as soon as the lights were turned on. What made the Whistler distinct was the sound, an eerie, two-note whistle, slow and repetitive. At first, the tale was dismissed as internet fiction, but recordings of the whistle began to appear, captured on smartphones and home security systems. The sound matched across videos, the pitch, the rhythm, always the same. Several witnesses came forward, including a man who claimed the Whistler followed his family during a camping trip in the 1990s. He remembered hearing the same two-note whistle from the trees and waking the next morning to find strange footprints surrounding their tent. Bare, but not human. In another case, a young woman walking her dog near a canal heard the whistle and saw a figure crouched in the distance, watching her. The police were called, but nothing was found. To this day, locals swear the Whistler is real, and new reports still surface from time to time, always tied to the same strange sound. In New Jersey, the legend of the Jersey Devil has persisted since the 1700s. Described as a winged creature with a goat's head, hooves, and a blood-curdling scream, it was thought to be nothing more than colonial folklore. But during one terrifying week in 1909, newspapers across the state reported dozens of sightings. Police officers fired at it. Schools closed. Residents locked themselves indoors. A trolley car full of passengers claimed to have seen the creature perched on a rooftop in Camden. Animal tracks that defied classification were found in the snow. The panic was real. The fear was contagious. Though skeptics dismissed the hysteria, sightings continued long after the initial wave of reports. Pilots, forest rangers, and even state troopers have all come forward over the years, describing encounters with something that fits the same impossible description. A creature with wings, red eyes, a scream that chills the blood. Whether it is one entity or a recurring phenomenon, the legend has never truly died. These early encounters leave behind more than rumors. They carry physical traces, eyewitnesses, and a consistent thread of dread. They remind us that sometimes the scariest stories are not created, but remembered. When urban legends begin to cross into the realm of verified reports, investigators often step in, some driven by skepticism, others by personal obsession. Yet time and again, those who seek the truth are left with more questions than answers, and evidence that resists simple explanation. In the late 1970s, a journalist named Bob Rickard began compiling reports of unexplained humanoid encounters across the United Kingdom. Among the strangest was the legend of the black-eyed kids. Initially dismissed as modern folklore, the stories were scattered, inconsistent. But in the early 1990s, a chilling encounter by a Texas reporter named Brian Bethel brought the phenomenon into the public spotlight. Bethel described being approached by two boys outside a movie theater in Abilene, Texas. They knocked on his car window and asked for a ride home. Their mannerisms were odd, polite but unnerving. He felt a deep sense of dread. Then he noticed their eyes. Completely black. No sclera, no iris, no pupil, just solid black. When he hesitated, they became increasingly insistent. He fled the scene and the story spread online. Soon, others came forward, dozens, then hundreds, claiming similar encounters. All described the same details: children with monotone voices, emotionless faces, and eyes like polished obsidian. No police department ever filed formal charges or apprehended suspects. But law enforcement officials quietly confirmed that many of the reports were genuine, and that some witnesses required psychiatric evaluation after the experience. In another case, the town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, became the epicenter of a year-long investigation into a creature known only as the Mothman. Between 1966 and 1967, over 100 locals reported seeing a winged humanoid with glowing red eyes. These sightings coincided with a wave of strange phone calls, UFO sightings, and visits from mysterious men in black suits. Local journalist Mary Heyer documented the encounters in her newspaper column, collecting handwritten letters, sketches, and even physical samples from supposed landing sites. The phenomenon came to a tragic climax on December 15, 1967, when the Silver Bridge collapsed into the Ohio River, killing 46 people. Many witnesses linked the disaster to the final sighting of the Mothman that same week. After the collapse, the creature was never seen again, at least not in Point Pleasant. But reports of similar entities began appearing in other locations, often preceding disasters or tragedies. In both the Black-Eyed Kids and Mothman investigations, researchers collected consistent, disturbing testimonies, yet no clear answers. Photos were blurry, recordings were corrupted, and evidence often vanished, sometimes literally. Government agencies refused to comment. Local authorities avoided media attention, and witnesses either went silent or disappeared altogether. The legends persisted, but the truth remained elusive, protected by a veil no one seemed able or willing to lift. When no conclusive proof can be found, theories rush in to fill the void. For every unexplained event or chilling sighting, countless voices rise to explain, or at least attempt to. Theories range from grounded science to deep-rooted folklore, but none can fully account for the consistency, the fear, or the patterns that emerge across time and place. In the case of the black-eyed kids, skeptics suggest a mix of mass hysteria and sleep paralysis. According to this theory, the human brain, when under stress or in a dreamlike state, can fabricate vivid figures and emotional dread. But this explanation struggles under the weight of physical encounters. Car doors tried, windows knocked, voices heard aloud, and recorded on tape. Some theorists believe these entities could be a form of psychic parasite, beings that feed off fear and mimic the appearance of innocence to gain entry. The folklore around vampires includes an ancient rule. They cannot enter without permission. The same holds true for the black-eyed kids. Every account includes a request for entry. Every witness refused. But what happens if someone says yes? With the Mothman, scientific explanations have centered around misidentified birds, such as the sandhill crane or barred owl. These birds are large, have glowing eyes and light, and are known to behave oddly. But the Mothman was described as over 7 feet tall, with no visible neck, and wings that spanned wider than a car. More unsettling was the emotional effect on witnesses. Many reported overwhelming terror, nausea, and even telepathic impressions. Paranormal researchers suggest the Mothman may be an interdimensional entity or a harbinger of death, appearing as a warning before catastrophe. The collapse of the Silver Bridge was not the only time a Mothman-like creature was seen before disaster. Similar beings were reported near Chernobyl before the nuclear meltdown and in New York just days before the September 11th attacks. Some theories go deeper. Researchers exploring common threads suggest these entities, Mothman, Black-Eyed Kids, Slender Man, the Rake, may not be separate at all. Instead, they may be manifestations of a singular phenomenon, a consciousness or force that adapts its appearance to cultural fear. As society changes, so too do the faces of its nightmares. Others point to tulpas, beings brought to life through belief and focused thought. In Tibetan mysticism, a tulpa is a thought form given physical reality through repetition and attention. With thousands of people reading, writing, and fearing these legends, could we be giving form to something that should not exist? None of these theories offer certainty. Each raises more questions than answers, but the continued reports, the overlapping patterns, and the eerie accuracy of old stories suggest that something is reaching through the veil, and it wears the mask of legend. Despite the years that have passed since these legends first surfaced, the activity has not ceased. If anything, it has evolved. The internet has become a breeding ground for new encounters and reawakened fears. Online forums, social media, and video platforms have created a space where people from across the globe can share their stories, unfiltered, unedited, and often terrifying in their consistency. In recent years, the Black-Eyed Kids phenomenon has surged again, this time through doorbell camera footage and TikTok testimonials. One widely circulated clip shows 2 children standing motionless outside a suburban home at 3 in the morning. Their faces are mostly hidden, but when one looks up, the eyes are clearly black, despite the poor lighting. The homeowner, who never answered the door, claims the children stood there for over 15 minutes before walking away without a word. In a separate case, a rural family in Oregon reported that a young girl appeared at their door asking to use the phone. When the father refused, she grew angry and began banging her head against the door, chanting something in an unknown language. The sheriff's department responded, but by the time they arrived, she was gone. No footprints were found in the fresh snow. The legend of the Mothman has also continued into the digital age. In 2017, over 50 sightings were reported in and around Chicago, Illinois. Witnesses described a flying humanoid with bat-like wings, red glowing eyes, and the ability to disappear mid-flight. One woman claimed she saw the creature perched atop a lamppost near O'Hare International Airport just minutes before a power outage grounded multiple flights. The sightings prompted amateur investigators to flood the area, and a few claimed to have captured images, though none have been officially verified. Still, the consistency in the descriptions, coupled with the proximity to major infrastructure, reignited theories that the Mothman is drawn to locations of impending catastrophe. Social media has made these stories harder to suppress. Hashtags trend. Videos go viral. And in the comment sections, users from other states, or even countries, chime in with similar stories. A woman in Brazil described a black-eyed boy knocking on her window in the middle of the night. A man in Japan shared dashcam footage of a pale figure crossing the road on all fours, only to stand upright and vanish. Meanwhile, local authorities remain tight-lipped. Police reports are sealed. Body cam footage is often missing or corrupted. In some cases, victims who shared their encounters publicly have disappeared from the internet entirely. Emails bounce, accounts are deleted, threads vanish. The digital age has not debunked these legends. It has amplified them. And as more people come forward with evidence, sightings, and terrifying encounters, the question is no longer whether the legends are real, but how long they can be contained. Urban legends have always held power, not just in their content, but in how they shape culture, fear, and even behavior. These stories seep into childhood games, schoolyard whispers, and late-night campfire rituals. But when legends show signs of reality, that power intensifies. It becomes something more than folklore. It becomes a force that reshapes how communities see the world around them. In Point Pleasant, the Mothman is more than a creature of the past. It has become a permanent part of the town's identity. A statue now stands in the center of town, complete with glowing red eyes and outstretched metallic wings. Each year, locals host the Mothman Festival, drawing thousands of visitors from across the country. Vendors sell merchandise. Speakers lecture on cryptids and paranormal theory. Yet, behind the celebration lies a darker undercurrent. Older residents speak of the days when children were kept indoors after dark. Some still believe the creature was a warning, a failed one, and that another tragedy could strike without notice. The statue may shine in daylight, but for many, it serves as a silent memorial to the lives lost on the Silver Bridge. The Black-Eyed Kids legend, though more recent, has triggered an entirely different kind of response. In online forums, entire communities have formed around documenting encounters and comparing timelines. Some have begun tracking global patterns, using pins on digital maps to follow waves of sightings across continents. Others have reported psychological aftereffects, nightmares, paranoia, and unexplained illness after interactions with the children. One mother claimed her 10-year-old daughter began drawing black-eyed figures obsessively after a single encounter. A teacher in Colorado resigned after a student brought a strange drawing to class and whispered that they had come to visit. Whether these incidents are directly connected or the result of suggestive influence remains unknown. But the fear they generate is very real. Then there are the cultural imprints. Movies, games, and internet challenges have latched onto these legends, sometimes trivializing them, but more often spreading them further. Slender Man, a modern urban legend that began online, morphed into something far more dangerous when two young girls attempted to murder a classmate, claiming they did it for the entity. That case, while distinct, echoes the same pattern, stories turning into belief, belief turning into action, and action leaving lasting scars on communities. These legends, once confined to small towns or whispered among friends, now live in the global imagination. They shape behavior. They influence art. They alter the way people move through the world. Whether people believe or not, the seed of fear is planted. A figure in the corner of your vision, a knock at the door late at night, a shadow crossing the road. The human mind may try to dismiss it, but the story is already inside. And once it is there, it rarely leaves. As the threads of these legends stretch across decades and continents, a haunting consistency begins to emerge. In scattered locations, from sleepy towns to crowded cities, people describe the same figures, the same sounds, the same sensations of dread. And often, their stories align in unsettling detail, despite no known connection between the witnesses, no prior exposure to the tales, and no apparent motive for invention. The Black-Eyed Kids are nearly always reported as appearing in pairs. Their clothing is outdated or ill-fitting, often described as resembling what a child might wear in the 1950s or 60s. Witnesses consistently report an overwhelming sense of dread, followed by a sudden drop in temperature and a disorienting mental fog. The children ask to come inside, into a home, into a vehicle, into a place of comfort. They never force their way in. They never break windows or pick locks. They ask and they wait. It is always the same. The Mothman across every sighting is described as silent. No wing beats, no footfalls, just a presence that appears, stares, and disappears. Witnesses do not report aggression, but they do report nausea, intense anxiety, and headaches following the encounter. Some believe these are effects of electromagnetic interference or high-frequency vibrations. Others insist they are psychic impressions, messages transmitted in flashes of imagery or sudden thoughts. In multiple cases, witnesses have claimed that the creature implanted a single phrase into their mind, a warning, a name, or a date. These details were often dismissed until that date arrived and something terrible happened. Even lesser-known legends exhibit eerie consistency. The rake, a pale, emaciated creature crawling on all fours, has been reported as far back as the 1700s in journals from early settlers in the northeastern United States. In one case from 2006, a family in rural Idaho captured photos of a gaunt figure standing in their barn. It vanished before authorities arrived, leaving behind deep gouges in the wooden beams and a foul smell that lingered for days. When the family attempted to share their story online, their account was banned, their email blocked, and within a week, they had moved and refused further interviews. These fragments, scattered sightings, strange symptoms, suppressed evidence, do not offer easy conclusions, but they form a web, a map. And at the center of that map is not a place or a person, but a pattern, a presence that adapts, moves, and appears to observe. It leaves behind no name, no calling card, just the echo of fear and a trail of witnesses left forever changed. These details, impossible to verify yet impossible to dismiss, are what make these cases endure, not just as stories, but as living mysteries. Their longevity is not due to media attention or pop culture. It is the repeated intrusion into reality, unexplained, uninvited, and always arriving where no one expects. What if these legends are more than just stories? What if they represent a kind of contact, an interaction between our world and something we do not yet understand? The consistency of details, the emotional responses, and the physical traces left behind suggest more than coincidence. They suggest design. And if there is design, there may be purpose. Imagine for a moment that these entities are not merely the products of imagination or trauma. What if they are signals? Like sonar pings from a deeper intelligence that cannot or will not reveal itself fully. The black-eyed kids, always asking permission to enter, may not be following supernatural rules, but operating under constraints we cannot comprehend. Perhaps they are testing boundaries, observing human behavior, or mimicking it in preparation for something larger. Or perhaps they are not individuals at all. Perhaps they are projections, forms chosen not for authenticity, but for psychological impact. Children with void-like eyes, winged creatures without a voice, pale, human-shaped things that crawl instead of walk. These are not just nightmares. They are archetypes, symbols that tap into primal parts of the human mind. Fear of the unknown, fear of corruption, fear of losing control. If they are not physical beings, then what are they? Thought forms? Echoes from other dimensions? Some researchers suggest the concept of interdimensional bleed-through, events or entities slipping into our reality from a parallel one. These bleed-throughs might occur more frequently near trauma, strong emotion, or geomagnetic anomalies. The places tied to these legends, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, or rural Texas, or even urban corridors like Chicago, may act as windows, temporary openings where the veil thins. Another possibility is that we are not dealing with different phenomena at all, but different faces of the same intelligence. Mothman, the Rake, the Black-Eyed Kids, the Hat Man. What if these are masks, chosen to match our deepest fears, to manipulate, to study, or to warn? Each figure may represent a fragment of a greater intelligence trying to communicate in the only way it can, through fear. Then again, maybe we are the ones creating them. The tulpa theory suggests that belief itself can manifest reality, that repeated exposure to an idea, especially one charged with emotion, can bring it into existence. With millions watching videos, reading stories, and fearing the same figures, could we be giving shape to something that once did not exist? But if that is true, who shaped the first one? These questions spiral without answers. They lead us deeper into speculation, where truth and imagination blur. But somewhere within that blur lies something real, something watching. And whether it comes from another world, another mind, or the dark corners of our own, it is no longer content to remain hidden in stories. It is reaching out, and we are already listening. The line between fiction and reality has always been fragile. Urban legends thrive in that space, between what we are told cannot be true and what our senses insist we have seen. They are the shadows of culture, echoing our fears, warning us through metaphor, teaching us through myth. But some of these shadows step forward. They leave footprints. They make eye contact. They do not vanish when the fire dies down or the sun comes up. The black-eyed kids still knock. The Mothman still watches. The rake still moves just beyond the reach of headlights. These are not isolated tales. They are part of something bigger, older, and more deeply embedded in the human experience than we want to admit. If they are real, then everything changes. The laws we depend on to define the world, what is possible, what is safe, what is true, begin to collapse. And in their place comes something ancient, something watching, something waiting. Perhaps these legends were never meant to be dismissed. Perhaps they are not warnings of monsters, but signs that the universe is stranger than we know. That our world is a thin shell, beneath which lie things we are not yet ready to see. But one thing is certain, these stories do not go away. They evolve, they follow us, and they are not confined to old books or forgotten towns. They ride alongside us, carried by memory, technology, and fear. They are no longer stories told around campfires. They are stories lived by ordinary people. Recorded, documented, shared. So the next time you hear a knock at your door in the middle of the night or see a figure on the side of the road that vanishes before you can look again, do not be so quick to dismiss it. Sometimes the legends are real, and sometimes they are closer than you think. Thanks for listening. This has been Paranormal Files. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, gain access to bonus content, and unlock our entire library of video podcasts, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.